Hi, how's everyone doing? My name is Minsal Kibalan. I am a tech lead at Universal Equations. Today we're going over a very special topic, that of multi-cloud. You see in the title there, I have two spellings of it, just to make sure no one gets confused. Some people use the word multi-cloud and some use multi-cloud as one word. So, just so that you know, I may use them interchangeably. The definition is kind of the same. We're talking about multi-cloud. We're talking about multiple public clouds. Okay, so that's I guess that's how we start off this conversation. So let's go ahead and move to that. The actual definition of the term. I try to keep this very simple. Multi-cloud management is using multiple public cloud services for multiple public clouds, right? That's i.e. Amazon Web Services. That's i.e. Azure Cloud, and I don't want to mention too many more because once you mention a couple, then somebody's going to say, well, why didn't you mention my cloud, right? So I'll just mention those two. But I guess the evolution of public cloud has been interesting. It's been interesting to watch the different phases of it when Amazon kind of got to a pretty pretty good start in terms of the rollout and everything, being able to get their first suite of or selection of variety of services to the outside community, and then other folks kind of did what they could to keep up, and some are catching up a little bit. I mean, it's been interesting to watch, just as an outside observer, to see the cloud wars. But now the cloud wars have taken a slightly interesting, let's talk an interesting term, because the we've accepted that um, a variety of, I mean, each public cloud. I mean, there are several public clouds that have something to offer, right? So, oftentimes, particularly for larger organizations, it doesn't make sense to just get all your services from one cloud. For smaller organizations, maybe that makes sense. For larger organizations, maybe not. So you may have one cloud where you like their Kubernetes service. I'm not going to mention, anybody's name, but you may like their Kubernetes service. You may like their machine learning services. But you may go over here and say, okay, well, these guys got good, just a nice variety of services. Maybe you like their identity management service. Maybe you like their blob storage. Maybe you like their cloud databases. I mean, there's just so many clouds that have something to offer. Maybe you like their cloud functions. Whatever they call their cloud function. You know what I mean? So it's like, how do we make that efficient? The multi-cloud management. How do we make that efficient? So uh, before we get into that, we might want to, just think about, because the emphasis of multi-cloud is on public clouds, but we can't forget about the hybrid cloud, because once you start having that conversation, okay, this is what this public cloud has to offer. This is what this public cloud has to offer. Then you got to think to yourself, what is my own data center have to offer? And that the answer to that question could be different for different people. But I just wanted to make that distinction, that when we're talking about multi-cloud, we're talking about multiple public clouds as opposed to a private on-premises data center. And I use the word data center loosely because your data center may not be like Google's data center, right? Their data center may be a lot larger than yours. I mean, you may have some branch offices or something set up. Um, so I mean, it's different ways of looking at it, but whatever you consider your data center, it may have something unique to offer that is not in a public cloud, or you would not feel comfortable deploying it to a public cloud. And there are a number of reasons for that. Okay, so let's go a little, see if we can go a little bit further with this and just talk about some of the benefits of multi-management tools and platforms. And I've just mentioned two. There are actually several, but I just mentioned two just to get your mind going, and then you can probably think of some others. Right. One is cloud cost savings, because it's almost like um, in your personal life, you may stream television shows, right? But it's not like you have, when we used to watch cable, we had one cable provider, whether it was Comcast or Verizon, whoever you use, right? But now you may have Hulu, you may have Netflix, you may have HBO Max, you may have all these different um, streaming services that you use, and you may like different programming from the different streaming services. Maybe you get sports from here, or the certain show you like here. But what may happen is it may become difficult for you to manage, and you may be getting charged for things that you don't want, but etc. So, or things that you're not using at the time. Maybe it's something seasonal like sports, right? So even in the off season, you're still getting charged for a sport that you only watch in the fall, right? So multi-cloud is the same way. I mean, there's just and some people call it FinOps. And you may have heard of the Aptio acquisition. Robert F. Smith's Vista company had bought Aptio some years back, and they sold it to IBM. But that's kind of what that was about. This whole multi-cloud push. It's a it's a big deal. It's a big deal, and part of the reason why it's a big deal is because of the cloud cost savings. Because we're talking about scale, right? We're talking about scale because, all right, you can think about your own situation where you're talking about, different streaming providers. But let's scale that out to an enterprise size, organization. Maybe they have 10,000 employees or more. So, you start adding some zeros to those streaming services that you're not using at certain times. And the cost that you could be saving becomes a pretty substantial amount. So that now the multi-cloud management platform almost pays for itself, because you're able to keep an eye on all these different services you got going on, and you may be able to do a breakdown. Maybe you want to break it down by the development team, right? The services they're using. Maybe you have a customer that you're hosting services for. Maybe you want to do a breakdown there to see if, because this is the financial part, right? This is not the technology part. Now I'm getting into the financial part, because you may want to know how much you're spending on the technology. So you got to know what what type of margins you're making off a particular customer. Because if you're spending more on the technology than the customer is paying you, then you may have to make some adjustments, right? So you just get a chance to see how all this works. You want to get a handle on what you're paying, and set some budgets, set some boundaries, monitor things. Some of these tools have amazing dashboards that you can go in and out of. You can see certain things. I mean, it's just and I guess I'm saying these things because I mean, we're going to talk about some of the multi-cloud management tools and platforms, just a few, but they're quite a few. So you want to be able to think about some of the things that you're going to be looking for, and is this at least going to pay for itself Is it user friendly? What do the dashboard looks like? What kind of options do I have with the dashboards? Or is it showing me what I need to know to make the decisions that my organization needs to make with the multiple clouds that we're using, and in some cases the hybrid cloud that we're using? If we're talking about private clouds, you know, maybe we need to better utilize certain virtual machines, or better utilize the compute, or the cloud resources that we're using, to maximize the benefit. And something else that I've also mentioned is the efficient mix and match of services for multiple clouds, right? Because like I said, you made like a cloud database over here, you made like a Kubernetes service over here, you made like an identity management service here, you made like the machine learning service here. There may be some kind of app service that you can easily deploy to, blob storage. I mean, there's so many different um, options, because now that the public cloud is more mature and the dust has settled a little bit, you get to see that, okay, some of these different public clouds have, um, like, one may have a really nice message queue that you like, right? So it's just so many possibilities when you can observe what's going on and manage the cost and manage the deployments, right? So it just gives you, it gives you some options there. So now we'll actually look at some examples of multi-cloud management tools and platforms, right? We'll look at Cloud Bolt, which is more of an enterprise tool. We'll talk a little bit about Cloud Zero, which is more of a mid-sized tool. I wanted to put that in there so uh, you can kind of see the difference, right? Kind of see the difference between a tool that's geared for the enterprise and a tool that's geared towards the mid-size. And then we'll talk about the VMware, that's now called ARIA, which was formerly vRealize, and that's also and more of an enterprise tool, right? So we'll take a look at those three, and I think that'll be enough of a discussion for right now, and we may even go into the vRealize in another conversation, because there's definitely some when it comes to I think we'll talk more about the vRealize operations, but the vRealize automation, or the ARIA automation, what it's now called. I think you'll see there's some very interesting concepts, that we can go over with that. But right now, we'll just stick with the vRealize operations, and along with that, you got stuff like the log analysis, and you got some other things that, because vRealize is a suite, ARIA is a suite. It's a number of services there, and VMware is very good at seeing where things are going and creating services that um, will get you there, right? So we'll talk about Cloud Zero. This is, like I said, this was the one that's more geared towards the uh, mid-level organization. So here, we see its focus on cost. Here, you see right in the picture, and this is directly from one of the dashboards of Cloud Zero. So kind of focus on cost. You don't see this, but this is probably a Redshift service. That's probably from AWS, and there's probably a number of services here where you can kind of keep track of what's going on. This is Redshift. You see a Lambda. Some of these services you may be familiar with. These look to be These happen to be all AWS services. I see the database service Kinesis S3. These happen to be all AWS services. But this is a tool that can give you a chance to just get a handle on your costs. And with this, as it says in the bullets, it could be by product, which is what they have here. Yeah, by feature, by company, by I'm sorry, by customer, which could be a company, uh, and by dev team. So that's it's just some of the ways that you can break down the data. Like I said, this is for a mid-sized company. You may not need to go to the to the enterprise, the vRealize stuff, the cloud mode stuff. This may be all you need for in terms of what your uses are. So let's go to some of the enterprise tools. This is Cloudbolt, and this helps IT unify orchestration and automate provisioning. Right. So as as this multi-cloud thing scales, as this hybrid cloud thing scales, it becomes a little more complex. So the tool that you use, needs, you know, enterprises could use a little more functionality. So um, this is talking about the provisioning of hybrid cloud resources. Is also talking about providing developers with access to these cloud resources with a self-service catalog. So if you can look in this picture, right, you can see there's a lot of services that you've probably heard of. You'll see that there's a mix of what we have here. This is Azure MySQL, Azure SQL Database. You see these are Azure services, and you see a mix up here with AWS RDS. This is MariaDB, EBS. So you're seeing a mix of Azure um, and AWS, and you see kind of some other services that I mean the picture doesn't show everything, but I mean there's probably some services on some private cloud or something. I mean that's very possible that that's the case, but they're all inside the same service catalog so that the developer can access and place an order just like you go into almost like if you go to the AWS dashboard and want to pull a service, or the Azure portal want to pull a service, they try to make it the same way, but now you're pulling from multiple clouds. So I don't have to tell you why that's useful. Um, and what helps it be even more useful is you can track the spend, right? And you can do some of the same aggregations or breakdowns that we saw with Cloud Zero. But now we have the added extra. A mid-sized company may not need this kind of need this kind of a functionality, but if enterprise, they may say, yeah, I think we do need this, because otherwise things would be too complex, right? You'll see a lot of the same things. So let's go over to the VMware. You'll see a lot of the same things with the VMware. VMware has a ton of different dashboards. Like I said, we'll probably do a separate conversation, about this vRealize piece, because you see I keep using vRealize and not the new name that it has, because it's been vRealize for a very long time, you know. And you can't see it here, but even when you go into the dashboard, you see vRealize. Um, but like I said, this is vRealize operations. That's the focus here. But there is a vRealize automation that you will see in the more advanced deployments of vRealize. In the more standard deployments, we're just dealing with operations. But things can get more sophisticated, right? So vRealize is a suite of tools, and we're talking about multi-cloud. You're generally going to want to see the log, the log analysis, which is a whole other tool that is part of the suite that you can get for the multi-cloud management. You see public cloud here. You see VMware Cloud. You'll probably see some private stuff over here. I mean, you can't see the whole picture. Um, this is probably a dashboard um, from a data center, or I guess you could be a public. I guess you could get one with a public URL as well. But it's looking at the URL here. This is like something from their own data center, right? Um, So you see that there's two classes. You see the AWS and Azure. You see some of the services that are available that you can provision. Like I said, this is just one dashboard. I mean, you can go into the cost. You can go into a lot of different things. You see alerts here. You can set up the alerts. We want to talk about the logging. And I just read this second bullet point can help plan, manage, and scale multi-cloud environments. So again, this is more geared towards usually it's more geared towards enterprises. There's just a lot of functionality here, a lot of functionality here, and you can have multiple people, focusing on one aspect of what um, this collection of services delivers. So, think I've spoken enough, and hopefully you get an idea of what multi-cloud is about and its relationship to hybrid cloud, right? Because, like I said, you see Azure, you see AWS, but you can also say, okay, yeah, let's pull in some stuff from our private data center, right? Um, so to make this complete, uh, and keep track of what's going on, whether it's the spend, um, the logging, the usage, errors. I mean, you can you'll be able to monitor all of these things and stay on top of things to make sure that the service quality is maximized and the cost is minimized, right? So I think I've said enough here. So here is here's the website. And if you wanted to go there and just check out some of the other content that we have. As far as my YouTube viewers, feel free to click subscribe, click like, or do both. We'd appreciate again either or both. But anyhow, I think I've taken up enough of your time. I thank you all very, very much for joining us. We'll talk to you later. Peace.